Stoyanishak, Board President Richmond, Vice President Petrone, and members of the Board of Education. I want to thank you for the opportunity tonight to highlight several of my overarching goals for this academic year, which is designed to support the work of the talented teachers and administrators in our district's 10 elementary and secondary schools. As has been my custom in the past, this will be just plain talk with no whistles and bells. My intent over the next few minutes is to expand upon several of the themes mentioned in my goal statement, a copy of which I believe was included in last Friday's board packet. Before I begin my remarks, I want to thank those principals and members of their leadership team who have joined us here this evening. Ours is a collaborative effort, and I'm always appreciative of the superb leadership provided in our buildings and grateful for the support that the principals have continually shown for the initiatives emanating from my office. Before we can talk about the coming school year, I always feel it is important to take a look back. Some of this information may be well known to you by this point, but it sets the stage for what lies ahead. Like any subjective or objective measure, the 2008-2009 school year was the most successful one for the city school district of Rochelle. Again this year, each of our buildings was recognized as a high-performing school that made significant progress in closing the student achievement gap. I think it's important to understand that this is the highest commendation given to schools annually by the New York State Education Department. It is not a claim that we make as a district, but rather an affirmation by the University and State of New York on behalf of the members of the Board of Regents as to what the students in our district have accomplished based on their performance in the grades 3 through 8 state assessments and on the high school Regents examinations. No matter how one feels about the rigors and benchmarking of these assessments, it is difficult to deny that these tests provide a comprehensive picture of student performance across the district. In fact, for each of our K through 5 elementary schools, these results are viewed in 66 different ways. That is to say, the state looks at assessments administered in ELA, math, and science, determines whether a school has met the accountability standard for both student participation and performance, and finally examines these accountability measures for each of the 5 ethnic groups, students with disabilities, limited English proficient students, and economically disadvantaged students. It is only after an elementary school building passes muster on each of these accountability measures that they are categorized as a school in good standing. So I think it is fair to say that our schools have been examined, probed, analyzed, and in the case of science, even subject to lab testing, and the reports back would seem to conclusively indicate that the patient is in very good health. Just to offer a few more particulars, results from the English language arts and math tests administered to students in grades 3, 4, and 5 showed that 86% of all children district-wide met standard on the ELA test, and 94% of all students district-wide scored performance levels 3 and 4 on the math test. This is an increase of 8 percentage points in English language arts and 7 percentage points in mathematics over the past 2 years. Results from the November social studies test administered to 5th grade students were equally as impressive. As a district, 96% of all students met the state performance standards, and 56% of these children scored at the mastery level. It is also especially noteworthy that, even with the many ELL children in our South End elementary schools who were required to take this language-based exam, each of these buildings had 91% or more of their social studies students meeting standard on a social studies assessment. The results from the grade 4 science test administered in May showed a similar level of exemplary achievement. 94% of all students, both general and special education, met the state performance standards in science, and a notable 72%, almost 3/4 of all of our students, attained a mastery level score, which meant that they received 85% or more of the total number of possible points. But as we know, test scores do not tell the whole story. This past year, Columbus School established a partnership with Starner Sports, a New Rochelle business and the largest sports memorabilia company in the country, along with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Westchester County, to provide mentors to a group of 3rd grade students who will maintain this relationship with the Steiner employees, hopefully for years to come. Jefferson School launched a film club as part of the school's arts and education program, which involves students in pre-production, production, and post-production activities associated with children creating their own professional quality videos. And several Columbus teachers had their math practice featured in a new series of professional development DVDs produced by Dr. Kathy Fosno, the director of the Math in the City program at City College, as part of her research funded by the National Science Foundation. Further, this past year we had larger numbers of children qualify to the district and modified kaleidoscope programs than ever before. And since performance on the New York State assessments is a large part of this selection process, This would indicate that our most academically able children continue to perform at the highest levels. With the expansion of our dual language program to its fourth site 2 years ago, and the establishment of the new Italian CELA program last September, almost 225 students each year now have the opportunity to emerge from our elementary schools as bilingual and biliterate. A review of the performance of our students at the secondary level is equally as impressive. On the ELA and math assessments administered in grades 6 through 8, both middle schools exhibited improved achievement at virtually all grade levels consistent with state trends. More specifically, on the English Language Arts assessment, 81% of all students met standard, which was an increase of 14 percentage points over the previous year. Further, on the grade 6 through 8 math test, 86% of all our middle school students met standard, which is a gain of 7 percentage points from a year ago. Student enrollment of 8th graders in advanced science and math courses was also expanded. The total enrollment of middle school students in the living environment course increased to 278 students from 213 a year ago, while enrollment in integrated algebra grew to 271 students from 212 the previous year. It should also be noted that all middle school students who sat for these 2 Regents examinations received a passing score of 65 or better. At New Rochelle High School, where there are also 66 accountability measures, students met the accountability standards in secondary level English Language Arts, secondary level mathematics, and for the high school graduation rate. The school achieved annual yearly progress for both the overall student cohort and each of the required subgroups. As we learned last week, the enrollment of students in advanced placement and honors courses at the high school continues to climb, with the participation of minority students increasing approximately 3 percentage points over the past 3 years, and tabulating this year's projected enrollment another almost 2.5 percentage points for 2009-2010. I would suggest that so much of this growth is a direct result of professional development emphasis on differentiated instruction and the Springboard initiative designed in conjunction with the College Board that was so ably introduced by my colleague Dr. Diane Massimo several years back and supported by Mr. Kennedy and the school's other building and instructional administrators. Let me be clear in providing you with the data upon which the designation of all of our buildings as high-performing gap-closing schools was based. There is no suggestion on my part that an achievement gap does not exist in our district, nor that we have eliminated it entirely. What we need to understand and acknowledge, however, is that the existence of a student achievement gap is a national issue, not one confined to New Rochelle. The most recent student achievement data shows that as a district, we continue to make significant strides toward addressing the at-risk factors which are directly related to student performance. These are factors which are well known and clearly established in the body of quantitative educational research. In a city school district like ours that primarily include student mobility, poverty, a student's native language, and whether or not a child enters school as a proficient English speaker. It needs to be understood that there's a direct correlation between these factors and low student achievement. So when we see a variation in the performance of various subgroups in our district, or even between schools, it is important to recognize that certain subgroups of schools contain larger numbers of students who are negatively impacted by these conditions. Therefore, before any of us reaches the conclusion that any particular group of children in our city is being underserved, we really need to examine the extent to which the other overriding factors, such as student mobility, poverty, home language, and English language proficiency, offer a clearer and far more accurate explanation of the variations found in student performance. It is based upon a consistent record of success, taking into account both quantitative and qualitative data, that our schools continue to build upon what has worked.